Do you feel like that you've been putting all this work into your manifestations? You've been, journaling, you've been doing your vision board, you've been really being conscious of like, hey, what am I thinking? But your manifestations aren't manifesting. This is actually a comment I've been getting recently, and I really wanted to address this. So in this video, we're going to dive into what's that next layer below the work that you're doing that still needs to be done. Let's dive right in. Now, little disclaimer here, I'm going to be a little raw, a little bit more real in this video, because when it comes down to it, there's going to be some truths that you may not want to hear. But if you stick with me, if you stick till the very end, I promise you that a little tough love is exactly what you need in order for these manifestations to take hold. So when we talk about this subject here, a lot of people think that, hey, I need to be doing, right? Doing the vision boards, doing the journaling, doing the visualizations, all of these things. And yeah, doing is important, but one key aspect that I feel people are missing is that there's a being part of this. You have to go within and you have to be. And a lot of the reasons why that your manifestations aren't working is because who you are as a person essentially needs to fade away. A part of you needs to die, and that's ultimately a scary thing to happen, because the personality that has got you here is not the personality that's going to get you to that next place. And that is a big thing to really, if you really truly understand that concept, it is really scary, because you're letting go of an identity that has gotten you here to this point in time, that has served you up until this point. And it might be kicking and screaming like, hey, I've had your back. Why are you going to ditch me now? And there's a part of you that feels like that. And ultimately what that part of you is your ego. And the thing is about ego is that the ego wants to feel important. It wants to feel validated, but the ego itself is very limiting. It's seeing through a small keyhole in who you are as a conscious being experiencing life here on planet Earth as a human being. You're so much more expansive than that. Your thought and your ability to tap into these higher realms, into these deeper frequencies, right, of possibilities is so much more vast. And your ego is seeing life through a keyhole that it can't even comprehend any of that stuff. And what happens with a lot of people, they tie their identity with ego, and they think their ego and themselves are one and the same. So what's the answer to this? What's the answer to help expand this perspective of reality? And one thing I need you to understand is that you're focusing too much on the physical. You're focusing too much of what's physically around you on the 3D aspect of life. And I get it, your senses, your eyes, everything is built for that. And you're being inundated with information with TikTok and YouTube and Twitter, all the things, TV, your spouse, your kids, you're having sensory overload, and you're receiving all of this data going right into your nervous system that you're getting bombarded, and it's really all that you can feel. And I get that. But what I need you to start realizing is that all of those things, yes, they're important, but you need to take a break from that sometimes. You need to step away. I need you to go and meditate. I need you to go for a walk. Just go somewhere where you can just not have any input, and you're receiving too much input from your surroundings. And manifestation is all about tapping into the imagination. It's about tapping into the nether realm of the mind and the quantum possibilities of all that exists. And it's really hard to do that if you're constantly being surrounded by information and you're being triggered by all these different things. So this is part of the process though. And it's good because your physical is there. You can always rely on it. It will always be there. the imagination part of life, the creativity part of life, it is an unknown door and it can be scary. But the more that you creep that door open, the more that you're able to be receptive of the possibility that, hey, this is some place that might feel unknown and scary, but ultimately it's there to serve me. And there's a really great quote from Terence McKenna, and I don't know it exactly, so I'm going to give you my best version of it. But people have this fear, and they feel like all their fears of jumping, it's like jumping into the abyss, right? But what fear really is when you jump into the abyss and you realize there's a feathered mattress below, right? And that's really the idea. It's like the fears is more in your mind, but ultimately it's an opportunity. It's an opportunity to step up and to step into another perspective of reality and perspective of who you are, and that's where the magic starts happening. So if you're not feeling a little bit afraid about this process, you're not doing it right. You're not doing it hard enough. If you feel comfortable about it, if you feel like hey, I did my thing, I checked my check box, right? It's not enough. And that's where the deep work starts happening. And that's where you're going to start going into these kind of caverns of yourself and start digging and just excavating and releasing and allowing all of these parts and aspects of yourself that you're not willing to look, that you're not really feeling, because you're being so inundated by all of this information coming at you. And your emphasis on the 3D reality, it is really, it can be considered a trauma response, because you're wanting to fixate on something that's outer, but really you have to go inner, you have to go within, and you have to tap into that aspect of yourself that is so anxiously waiting to come out. And I know that people might suffer from a lot of anxiety and a lot of things that's a lot of mental illness and things like that. And I know that, yes, there's a medical process to that and people should be getting help. But I also want to mention there's a layer of that too that's not being expressed, that's not being allowed. And it's almost like a dam, and you have all this potential, but it's hitting a dam. And what happens is that the dam is starting to crack, and it's starting to fracture, and your being is starting to fracture and crack. And it wants to explode in the most uncontrollable way. And what I want you to do is to be the vessel that allows it to flow easily and frequently in a space where it's like a river. Because if it explodes out, you're gonna crack. You're gonna have a nervous breakdown. You're gonna have an episode. It's not gonna be pretty. But with this practice, with this meditation, then that's where I'll be able to allow the stream to come through. And I really want to emphasize the importance of thinking of it as a stream of consciousness, because water is so powerful, but it's also so serene. And imagine this consciousness is like a river hitting a dam. And the more that you're able to meditate, you're more able to visualize, to use your imagination, step away from the 3D for a little bit, it's going to be a lot easier for that energy to flow in. So ultimately what I'm trying to tell you is focus on the internal state. Don't use the 3D reality, the outer world, as a gauge. And I know a lot of people will do that. They'll see what's around them and be able to kind of make judgments, because they're like, hey, this is what's real, this is what's happening, but this isn't what I'm feeling on the inside, therefore this isn't working. And what I'm trying to get you to shift is that perspective that, hey, make it happen on the inside, because the inner reality is what's going to reflect into the outer reality, right? It's that law of mirroring is what's important here. And it's going to take some time. And if there's things that still aren't coming up, there's still a level of work that you're not doing that needs to be addressed. So how do you become more aware of these things? The first thing you can do is ask people around you to be like, hey, I'm noticing some patterns around me, but I know there's some things that I'm not seeing. Can you just witness and just give me some feedback and be receptive to what they have to say? And it might be hurtful, but this is the work that is required to do this, And another way you can do it too is join a group. find a group of other individuals who are on this path, who are on this manifesting journey, and support each other and help point out each other's, opportunities for growth. And that is going to be such a big part of this. And, you can't go into this alone, and it definitely something that a lot of people have done. But if you want to accelerate that growth, if you're wanting to take that next level super fast, then community is going to be so big for you. Even just commenting here and letting me know like what your challenges are, because it's not just going to be me commenting, it's going to be other people. And that community aspect is going to be so key. And I'm a big believer in that. Another thing that you're going to have to do is really address your fears. Fear is such a huge, barrier for a lot of people. And it's not even the fear of, is this going to happen? Is it ever going to come into my existence, into my field? It could even be the field of what's going to happen when I do get it. What kind of responsibility am I going to have to take in order to receive this? And am I going to like the person that I'm going to be if I do receive that? All that is fear thinking, and all of that is there, and it's very valid to have those thoughts. But it's all because all of us have those thoughts, all of those think through that process. But the next layer, and this is where not a lot of people will do, is they'll go to, why am I having those thoughts? How can I shift those thoughts? What would be the opposite? If I'm afraid of me being that part of myself that will turn into an asshole about it, then what's the part of myself who would be a badass at it, right? Who would be the highest version of that? What would that look like? And that's where the creativity and the imagination will come through. Fear is a knee-jerk reaction. It's a repetition of what's been done. You've known it, you know it very well. You've either experienced it or you've known people who have turned this way, or maybe there's just a general archetype. When someone has this kind of thing, for instance, when someone has money, they're corrupt. So what would be the opposite of that? I have money and I'm enlightened. Imagine that reality. Imagine that for yourself and really sit with that. So the biggest thing I want you to take away too, there's a lot of big nuggets in this video, but I want you to understand that this is not complicated. This process is super simple. Don't overthink it. Don't feel like that there's all these steps that you have to do. Take, small bites, not big chunks, and you'll be able to sustain this in the long run. Now, the fear aspect is definitely something that might trigger people, and there'll be a process to that, and that's totally fine. And you're going to need to do the work, and that might take some time, or it might be instantaneous. The thing is don't make any assumptions on how you think it's supposed to work, how you think it's supposed to show up. Just be here, be now, and surrender to the creativity that wants to come through. And remember that waterfall, that flow of water that wants to come and flow through you. You are that empty vessel. And what happened is throughout your experience, you got gunked up. So let's remove all of that gunk. Let's remove all of the bricks that have been layered on inside of yourself, and let's start allowing that flow to pierce through and not explode through, but to kind of start creating these channels and these water waves to be able to flow through, so everything will crumble. And it's like a controlled demolition, right? Like everything will be controlled and everything will crumble and it'll fall away and it'll dissipate. And then that is going to be the process that I hope that you're going to be taking away from this video. So thanks for watching. Thanks for sticking around. I really had fun, sharing this information. I really love the comments you guys are giving me. This has been super helpful. It's been engaging, hearing what you guys are resonating with and where there's opportunities to grow. That just lights me up. So keep doing that. Make sure to like the video, make sure to subscribe, make sure to hit that, that bell icon, all the things, and if you do know someone that would benefit from this video, make sure to share it. Any of those things will help me be seen, and the algorithm will just favor all that stuff. And I would love to just reach as many people as possible. So thanks again for watching. Have a kick-ass day, and I'll talk to you soon.